I'm Dawn Wisher.
And I'm Katie Metz, and this is How to Teach College. Welcome back to How to Teach College. Today, we're talking once again about our least favorite thing to talk about, which is teamwork. Today, so in a previous episode in the semester, we talked about forming teams and just basically what you can do, the best and the worst, the most and the least. And today, we're going to shift our focus to assessing teams once they are formed. So I think it's important to emphasize before we get started into the guts of this, that whether or not your class is specifically devoted to teaching or promoting best practices in teamwork, if you assign a team of any sort, you have to find a way to fairly assess them. My friend Dawn is joining me as always, and she is the team assessment expert.
We love to hate teamwork.
And we hate to love it, and it's
But I would like to say we're a good team.
Hey,
So right now,
we formed a team.
I am loving teamwork. But hey, I'll let the podcast know when I'm hating it. I'll let you know when Katie and I are in a knockdown, drag out. But we are not talking about that today. We are not talking about Katie and I's teamwork. We are talking about assessing teams. And so specifically, we're going to talk about setting expectations, being transparent with students because they see that there's teamwork on the syllabus. You've put them in a team. All they want to know right now is how will this affect my grade?
Absolutely. Oh no, teamwork. How is this going to impact my grade?
So first of all, just being transparent about that and helping them know what that will look like. And then the grading options, because there are a variety. And then also holding our students accountable, helping them even when the point of the class is not to learn about teams and it's not to assess teams. It's not a teamwork class that we're talking about, but yet we do have to hold them accountable that is a component of the class.
And I think setting expectations, the first point we're going to talk about, is a really important thing no matter what. So we talk about teamwork, and we did this in the first podcast we did about teams in a variety of contexts. But assigning teams and then assessing them, therefore, and I'm just going to say it, I'm just going to be out there and say it, it should not just be a lazy way of grading.
Right.
A way to get work done quickly or efficiently, or even maybe on the opposite end of that, a way to give your students a break from individual work. Mm-hmm. Students are going to work together, whether or not you force them to do that. And so we have to set expectations as we're forming teams. And I'm seeing that a lot in a situation where my discipline is not something that you would naturally expect to go stand up and jump around and do a presentation.
Right.
If I do that in my classroom, I have to set an expectation for what that's going to mean.
Right.
And hold them accountable for the actual teamwork part. So
like you said, it's not just all of those things. Yeah. A way to make grading easier.
Right. It can't be.
A couple of things that I do, and I'm sure there are more, but I do have my students complete a team contract. And so that can look like a variety of things. I do even point them to our code here in Kelly about just student conduct. And it talks a little bit about that because it is more about collaborating than a couple ends of the spectrum could be, of course, just doing all of the work and then not really letting other people do the work, and now they're getting the credit, and so
there are two types of bad teammates, right?
Yes, and then on the other hand, of course, we know the people that ride on the coattails. So I do point them to that at the beginning, but basically, it's what it sounds like. It's how are we going to work together? What are the expectations? How it feeds into the team assessments? How are we going to assess? Even thinking about what are the norms going to be?
Right.
What are the consequences going to be? So if I never come to meetings or I'm always late. Sometimes people make it kind of funny, then I have to bring pizza to the next meeting.
Right.
Or they might say, hey, we assess each other. You will be getting some points docked because you are just not meeting this criteria that is important for us to function well and to eventually perform well together. Right. So I like that team contract. It's something that I realize a lot of times students just sort of do it and I don't do a good job of revisiting it. So it's something that I can help them periodically in the semester to say, let's revisit that. Do you want to edit it and turn in a new version? Is what you've agreed to working for you, or do we need to
Right.
rethink it?
Well, and I think an important aspect of that is if you have a team situation where you're expecting them to form a team or you form a team for them, however that works, and then you keep them in that team with high expectations for the entire semester. So team contracts are really beneficial in situations where the stakes are high and they're going to be seeing each other a lot in various capacities throughout the semester. Is that
Right.
like a pretty...
Yeah, I mean, I even tell my students that our syllabus in the class is a contract.
Yes.
And so if you can liken it to that, we're not trying to create more work for you, but exactly, it's this, we're setting expectations, we're setting the norms, the rules, if you will.
And you're going to be together for a while, so you better be prepared to follow them. Yeah.
Yeah, and that it's really going to help the relationship. It makes you sit down and have those potentially tougher conversations.
Yes. Yes.
And then the other way that you can help set expectations is to tell the students if they will be doing, and they do in my class, I believe in team assessments.
Yes.
But again, being transparent and what that will mean. So will it only be feedback, which I don't want to say just or only, because that feedback is so important to hearing what other people think about how you're performing and how you're communicating, how you're working. So will it be feedback and feedback only, or will it affect the grade? Do the students get to give someone a 10 out of 10 and then me as the professor to say, what does that then equate to in the final grade of the semester?
Right.
So there's a lot of things to think through, and we're never on this podcast about saying what's right and wrong and black and white and gray. The variety would take a long time to get into, and you could slice this and dice this a million different ways. But you having a clear rationale for what you're doing,
Yes.
and then relaying that to the students.
I guess one thing I'll ask you about this, and this actually does lead into our second point with grading options, is I know in my classes where teamwork is not the point of the class, and I still have to find a way to assess teams.
Sure.
I'll talk about that more in that third point with holding students accountable.
Okay.
But one issue that I've run into with the team assessments piece, given that it's just a team project to help students collaborate, but that's not the point of the class, even remotely the point, is how you hold students accountable for being honest in their assessments. And that kind of does lead into, I think, maybe the grade being at stake. Is that true?
It's hard. Even with the grade being at stake, it's hard. I was working with another professor that teaches computers and business. So we've talked a lot about these different disciplines and working together and learning from one another. And I believe they take 100 points and you have to allocate it. So in that way, you can't just give everybody 10s, but you can actually, people have to make those decisions on what does that person really earn.
So kind of a scale thing. You can't give this number of points to allocate. You have
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that helps. And I think it really just comes down to, I don't know that I'm totally answering your question.
That's
because we love to hate teams. I think we said this on the earlier one. It's the hardest part for me of the classroom management,
right.
Because students will come to me and say, we don't know how to motivate someone. And I'm like, neither do I.
Yes.
I'm like, you guys, I've got the carrot, I've got the grade, and I can't motivate them. I don't know how you do either.
Well, also, you've all known each other for the same amount of time. Maybe occasionally you have people who come in and are on the same, oh man, do I have stories about that?
Right.
Who've known each other before, but then in most cases, everybody's meeting everybody else for the first time, including you as the professor who is responsible for ultimately assessing it.
Right.
So you grade those assessments themselves.
So the way I do the assessments is I have the teamwork is a big part of the class.
Yeah.
To me, that makes sense because I teach a communication class, and I'm helping them to build some skills that they're going to be using in their college career, and then
in future classes, actually too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so the way that they get grades in my class, and I'll try to make this clear, they do these assessments, so they get points for doing the assessments. Okay. So even if you're not doing them well, you're doing it. And then I have them do a reflection. So that encourages them to actually read these reports that are generated to see, what do people think of me? How do I feel about that? What was a surprise? What was a compliment? What was a little hard to hear? So 3 easy questions. I think it's 5 points to do this. Very low stakes. But so they're getting the 5 points for doing the assessment, and this is periodically throughout the semester. 5 points for just reflecting on it. But then I do say in the syllabus, and it's not a hard, fast rule. I just say I basically have the the right, if you will, to lower your grade. I think I've got 2 full letter grades if I see that you were basically, I don't say slacking in the syllabus, but slacking. Because to me, if you have an A in the class, but I can see consistently from the reports, I can see from your performance that you have that grade because of all of the teamwork, then absolutely I will go in and change that. But that's because I'd say a good 3rd or 4th of their score is teamwork.
Yeah.
So
you can't, I mean, that's the thing, is that the stakes are high enough just by default of the structure of the class.
That happens very rarely, but it has happened because it's reality. You got this grade because you were writing on coattails, not because you earned that grade.
And I think the point of all of this is that your class is grounded enough in teamwork itself that you feel confident that you can do that. So I have the holding students accountable when the point of the class is not to learn about NSS teams, obviously teaching a more quantitative, usually finance accounting students. And the way I structured this, just to refresh your memory from forming teams, here's your random team. Good luck.
Right.
I actually did something different in my tax class where they all kind of knew each other. And it's working okay, but it's a little chaotic, actually, because they get silly and weird around each other. But I assess teams also, but the project has teamwork as a very low stakes component of it. And so basically what I do is, and this might sound a little harsh, to be honest, but it's I found it to work. Let's put it that way. Is I give students the clear expectation that by not participating equally and beneficially, or by implying that another teammate has participated equally and beneficially when in fact that teammate has not. So in other words, not disclosing a slacker teammate, that is academic misconduct, actually.
Yes.
That team evaluations do not work unless there is a specific component of the class associated with teamwork. And in my case, it's a learning goal directly tied with you must be a beneficial teammate. So again, to paraphrase, if you are falsely representing your own work or somebody else's work, you're participating in academic misconduct. So it's your responsibility to self-regulate and tell me if something is going badly. And actually what's so interesting about that is that I switched from actual go sit down, do evaluations, and students were giving each other 5s out of 5s, even though I knew people weren't participating, to just no evaluation whatsoever. And I put a reasonably long paragraph at the top of each assignment that says, please participate. And if I find out that you were representing yourself or somebody else's work as falsely participating, I'm going to report you for academic misconduct. And I found that because it's a tenet of the honor code.
It absolutely
and I know that what I'm saying sounds harsh, like kind of being a hard ass. But what I have found is that my students, under that sort of, I'm going to use the word threat, but under that sort of warning or that umbrella, actually sit down and have honest conversations with me about teammate participation and the scalability of that. So this teammate didn't really contribute effectively. We're not worried, though. We think that he just had a rough week and that he'll turn around the next case project we do.
Right.
Versus this person did not show up. We have not seen this person the entire semester. Can you please remove him from the team? So I'm actually
I like that, though, because it kind of ties into, it's almost taking you and them out of the equation and sort of looking at the credibility of the academy.
Yes.
I mean, we are in academics and this is an expectation. And hey, guess what? Probably any career you go into, I was in public relations.
Right.
We have a code. We have an honor code. We have a code of conduct. I know many professions do. And so here at IU, we have them, but also you'll have these in your career. And so deciding your own sort of character and integrity.
Yes, that's absolutely it. And also not making you feel like because there is no team assessment, that you have no outlet whatsoever for holding other people accountable. I think that's the important thing.
And it shows that we're there for them.
Yeah.
Be careful of just like tattletelling and not self-regulating and solving your own problems. But that at the end of the day, the professor is absolutely there to help guide you because you are learning. You're learning
honest conversations too about it. And again, I think that that's an important piece of it, given that a team assessment in my particular situation was not effective. And I think those of you, again, we're in a business school, but in disciplines who would like to incorporate teamwork but don't quite understand how to do that without either just everybody slacking or everybody telling on each other. That sort of taking, I loved your phrasing there, taking you and me out of the equation and putting their own credibility and character as the responsibility, putting the onus on that, is the way of the ISS teams when I assign them with a relatively low stakes. So again, I cannot reiterate enough that holding students accountable and finding a way to assess teams in some capacity, especially if your class is not devoted to that. If you assign a team, you have to do something to hold them accountable. Otherwise, you're not matching your instruction in class day to day with your learning goals. So I think today, holding students accountable is how we teach college. I didn't think that was going to be the conclusion, but
yeah, I think this is how we teach college.